I assume everybody knows what we're talking about when we talk, or maybe I shouldn't, about data analytics, right? So analytics is where you take huge amounts of data, the so-called big data, throw it in a computer, and you can do one of two things. You can ask the computer and say, what's going on here? What patterns do you see? That's one thing you can do, and it can tell you about things that you didn't know about. Or you can specifically ask it, is this happening? And so where you query it and say, is this related to that? So when we're talking about analytics, we are looking at the ability to learn things we had no idea were happening. So my favorite example is like Walmart learned that they sold 10% more when they sell things in natural light versus artificial light. And they had no idea. They didn't even ask the question. The computer just said, when you open new stores, you have certain weird product categories that sell more. And it took them about a year to figure out it was because they had skylights. But the computer's the one who told them so that one they didn't even ask for, it just showed up. So analytics can hopefully help manufacturers and distributors find new customers, find new ways to sell to customers, those sorts of things. So analytics is a new thing. Molly, what about you? What sorts of, what's on your roadmap? What things haven't you got to or just beginning to think about, or even further out?
I'm laughing because every time I think about this question, there are so many things to do.
Exactly.
It's sometimes overwhelming to think about all the different ways and the different paths that we could go down. I would actually say we're doing a lot of work, ironically, on the web services and connecting ERPs right now, and the punch outs, and doing feeds back and forth of inventory. And one of the reasons we're escalating and getting that process faster is because that's what our distributors are asking us to help them with right now.
Oh, okay, good.
So some of what we're doing is being driven by what our channel partners are asking for. So a real focus on web services, how we're leveraging and utilizing that. I think another big area for us is on this, what I'd call demand generation side. And so we do a lot of, like other companies, marketing automation, where we have hundreds of thousands of customers who are coming to us for information, and how are we kind of helping nurture them to a point and then work to give those leads to our salespeople to work with our channel partners, and really how do we automate that even more closely and more tied together. So that whole front end, driving the solutions and the data and providing good information for our salespeople at that moment, whether it's cross-sell, if you're doing these kinds of solutions, upsell, here's the things that they typically want, or here are things that if they aren't asking you, maybe other things. So a lot of tools around that part for the front end, really important. I would be remiss to say there's not a big piece on the product side for us around how are we talking about those solutions that people expect from a solutions perspective with our product and what that means.
Yeah,
and so there's a big piece of our development that happens around that as well. So, and project management would be the other one.
Oh,
we're really trying to understand a better way to have that project management process flow and work between ourselves and our channel partners. And we think there's big opportunity for collaboration. And so that whole that idea of a collaboration hub between us for helping each other be more effective on the projects is another big area.
You anticipated my next question, and maybe I'll just throw this back to Drew. Molly mentioned, I was going to ask about, we talked about ERP and order management and those sorts of things, but what about sales and marketing? Molly just brought that up with leads. Do you see anything, on your digital roadmap for sales and marketing, as opposed to, obviously inventory and other things affect sales and marketing, but anything specifically around sales and marketing that either you're doing, or more specifically that you might be doing in the future differently on a digital basis?
Yeah, I think, likewise, I think we all struggle with our product management data, right? And I think that's the biggest thing for us. I look at it on our side as a manufacturer. We sell, people who are buying our stuff are registered users, signed on partners, et cetera. We don't have a lot of people who are coming to our site, from the garage saying, hey, I need to buy a panel board or a switchgear. Tell me about this, right? A lot of times they have that information. But I think what they're struggling with, and we've seen it on our side, is getting quick access to that information, right? So, and then how are we telling that story of our new products and that new innovation, right? A lot of times we have a lot of people coming to again, our authenticated side of the world, which is very task focused, right? Can I create a quote? Can I configure something? Can I get an order status? But where we're missing, I think, is a blend of where you work every day, and then how am I telling my story on the product and sales side? So how are we getting information about, new products, and telling on panels, those kind of things in our realm? It's kind of missing, right? You get somebody who's coming in every day and buying kind of products that aren't going to be there in a year, because we're missing that connection on the sales and marketing. So merging that, I think, is a big thing for us, and kind of a revamp of that information catalog, kind of deal tools. So early on, estimations, budgetary, type tools to help drive that sales.
All right, good. I'm going to ask the audience at this point, is there anything you'd like to see from a sales and marketing perspective? Anything where you think you could do a better job in sales and marketing if you digitize things in your own business and or work with manufacturers, want something from manufacturers? Any ideas? They can be way out ideas or just next year ideas with sales and marketing that's not happening today, where digital tools could help? Or are you perfectly satisfied with that?
Well, I'll comment. There's a lot of digital tools coming at us from manufacturers. And when we select one, it's often much more difficult to integrate into the business system than I think anyone would have thought, right?
Yeah.
So I think from the manufacturer side, the heads up on how much programming time is going to go. Because even within, say, the sort of the distributors, it's not one distributor to the next using the system a little bit differently.
Right.
And so I think some help on hey, this is what it's going to take to integrate this properly.
So back to the product roadmaps, not only advanced warning, but maybe some joint discussions about the underlying IT.
Well, there's something we're trying to put out on the website. It's taken a year so far. It's still not ready to launch. It's just not what our customers would expect.
In addition to integrating what you're saying, I think curating. There are so many tools coming at us and options. Curating those and figuring out how to develop your own secret sauce is a challenge.
So the issue isn't, what should we do? It's, we got so many things to do, help us narrow it down. Yeah, okay, good.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yeah.
I do think that even as a manufacturer, we struggle with that, right? There are so many things that we can be doing. At least my perspective is there are so many things we can be doing. And there's this balance of short-term payback. And so what can we do that we can really kind of accelerate this journey that makes sense while still trying to figure out what are those longer-term plays we've got to look at. And you don't want to go too far because, I was working with the core Eaton overall digital foundation pieces and the complexity of what we're trying to do. And it's exactly what you said. Everyone does it just a little different. We don't pull things out of the box. So using, standard connectors doesn't work very well. So everything is way more complex than you think it's going to be. And so figuring out how together we go forward in a way that makes sense and that is paced, because it does me no good to have this amazing solution, I think, but my distributors can't leverage it. So for us, part of this challenge is what's the right pace to build the short-term benefits that our partners are ready for and still all of us be preparing for what we've got to be at. And that's just changing so much because the technology changes and what people want to have access to and all those different pieces. So I think it's a big challenge for us in the industry.
Molly, to talk about that, I think one reason it's implemented everywhere is because nobody offers a plug-and-play solution. So we all have to kind of build it into our system. If there was a you can develop something that just automatically plugs into a clip, we probably would all on a clip probably adopt it. But it's some sort of a version. I haven't talked specifically about Eaton, but some version of any tools put out there, and we all have to figure out how to integrate it into our system versus a plug-and-play option. I think that would speed it to market for use.
What do you guys think about this? When you're developing these tools, there's very few business systems that's a majority of your do you have conversations with them about how these things would integrate? Because it seemed to me that, I'm not a big fan. I love Eclipse and what it does, how they're managing the product. making me crazy. But I think that's they're not here to defend themselves or to talk about, but I'd be curious how closely you work with them, or with the business, with the ERP system.
Thank you. That was my exact question. So I appreciate that. Good. Yeah. Pam.
Yeah. So we haven't taken the approach of actually working with each one of the ERP systems, and we'll be piloting this going into 2018. So we learn a lot through that process. But what we've done is taken a very open API approach to what we build, right? So independent of the ERP system, the ability to connect to specific transactions, will be present. Now, will there be some nuances as we actually go through to your earlier point, right? Each organization is going to have their implementation of the solution. From a prior life coming from the tech industry, this is done extensively, right? In the channel, in the tech industry, if you take a Cisco, you take a Dell, the configurations, the product data is all maintained by the OEMs, and the channel, enables an end user to actually punch out all the way, configure, bring it back in. That's really, because it's almost not, it's not practical to maintain configurators at the channel and the distribution level. So the approach they have taken, right, is to stay ERP agnostic and really have open APIs that you can actually connect to. So directionally, that's what we will be, piloting as we go into 2018. Now, the other piece on, question and feedback around, there's a lot going on from a digitization standpoint. The approach we've taken is, a mode 1, mode 2 approach, right? And what I mean by that is because mode 1 is what's going to impact you significantly in the next 12 to 24 months that can drive efficiency, that can impact the top line and the bottom line, right? And so we have very, our SE Advantage investment is significant. That's our focus. That's our mode 1 for the 12 to 24 month focus. And then we have mode 2, which is really looking at, we're leading the industry with how we influence the usage of BIM tools, right, in the industry. And we've got our products that we've built around it, and that's constantly evolving, the layout fast and set of tools that evolves. So there are things that we invest in which is more future, and forward-looking, and that needs just a different mindset to iterate and to learn and have a different kind of feedback loop mechanism compared to what you are focused on, in your short-term kind of 12 to 18-month window.
All right. Molly, Drew, what about working with a small number of ERP vendors? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's kind of similar. How do we build these APIs to do that? But I think that feedback we're starting to hear more and more. And I think just kind of learning that if we can partner with a few strategic, it'll drive that adoption probably in the way we want it to be versus where we're kind of going at it right now, right? Our hope is, hey, we build a standard API, it's out there, but I think what we're going to see is 72 ways of consuming that API, right? So it's standard on our end to publish. It's not standard to consume and go about that. So I think, I'll be, pretty transparent and say at this point, we've not fully engaged in those conversations. It is on our, kind of thought process and roadmap to figure out how do we go take that, across the look. And I'll be frank, on our case, it was a lot of, fixing the front end tools and integrating with our own business process, right? I mean, we've gone through massive transformation on our own digital tools and getting it to work. And now that we've stabilized that, it's about growing that partnership. And I think that's where it's going to be is, where is the industry standard and how do you go plug? Because we see it, I think, in other programs that we use, examples being, as an SAP shop internally on our side, I can go purchase connectors to other tools. And those seem to be standard. I can't purchase a connector for every tool, or I could unite. So I think it's, how do we have connectors and then also facilitate that kind of open standard API?
Good.
I would say for us, we have partnered with Eclipse on web services and inventory. It's one of the pieces we're using Eclipse, going through Eclipse and an ERP to connect to ours to do real-time inventory. And so we are piloting that with them right now with an expectation that we'll be able to roll that next year. And that's a big step forward for us. And it's a chance to see if we can make that work. So we are doing that there. But I think we have to think about those ERPs. I agree with your comment that you build it, but everyone still does it a little differently. I think a question that the industry can have around standards is more about data structure, because data structure will enable us to have a lot more standard connectors if we're talking about structured data in a common way. And that can enable us to all go faster and to enable better collaboration. It's why we're so focused on data right now, is trying to make sure we're creating a good data model that we can leverage in lots of different ways to accelerate the pace of change going forward. So I do think we need to be doing that and be a part of that. I don't think it's the only answer. I think open APIs are going to also need to be there so people can do what they want to do. And at the end of the day, our job is to figure out how do we enable our customers, joint customers, to buy in the most efficient way possible, the way they want to buy, when they want to buy, how they want to buy. And it's just trying to put the right pieces together to do that.